So this video is going to be kind of a sequel, kind of a Frankenstein Part 2, because my last video, and in particular certain reactions to it, inspired me to officially review 1994's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, directed by Kenneth Branagh. So Kenneth Branagh plays Victor Frankenstein. Robert De Niro plays the creature. Helena Bonham Carter plays Elizabeth, Victor's fiancée. Tom Hulce plays Victor's friend Henry. And you see in the background there that John Cleese is also in the film, and he plays Dr. Waldman, Victor's scientific mentor. And Ian Holm plays Victor's father, and of course you know Ian Holm from Alien and of course Lord of the Rings. Cherie Lungi is Victor's mother. Now, I love Cherie Lungi because I will always remember her as Guinevere in the film Excalibur, which of course is this awesome film about the legend of King Arthur. But she also played Nancy in an adaptation of Oliver Twist from the early 80s with George C. Scott as Fagin and Tim Curry as Bill Sykes. And there was a particularly memorable dark scene in the movie featuring Cherie Lungi that I'll never forget. Frankenstein actually comes from a loving family. There are no daddy issues, nor are there any mommy issues. That is until his mother, in this film, dies while giving childbirth to Victor's little brother, William. This is what leads Vic to Victor's crusade to, quote, end death. As a child, Victor grows up with both Elizabeth and Justine. Justine is the daughter of a woman employed by the Frankenstein family, and Justine's story is a particularly tragic one in both the novel and the film. Basically, everybody knows the gist of the Mary Shelley story. Victor becomes obsessed with creating life from the dead with regrettable results. And it's Victor's regrets that open and close the film as he tells his story to an explorer who's stuck in the Arctic. And this explorer basically shares Victor's same obsession. Now, some critics view Branagh's rather exuberant performance as lacking remorse, for his actions. But I actually disagree with that. People have different emotions and feelings at different times, and Branagh's Frankenstein is no different. If he had no remorse, for example, why warn the explorer? Why admit to his own madness? Just because his regrets are a bit understated in the film doesn't mean they don't exist. Some also accuse the actor of chewing too much scenery. And I'll admit that he's an energetic Victor and very enthusiastic as Dr. Frankenstein. However, there is more going on underneath the surface. And by the way, if an actor playing Frankenstein can't chew a little scenery, who can? Right? I especially appreciate Victor's love of science in the film. All versions of Frankenstein portray his obsession for creating life, but I don't think any illustrate his passion for science like this film. For example, there's a lovely scene early in the film where he takes Elizabeth, Justine, and William to this hilly countryside, ostensibly for a day of kite flying. But his real intentions are to involve them all in a scientific experiment that includes electricity. It's kind of a lighthearted scene, and everybody kind of shares in Victor's excitement, including us, the audience. In many ways, his passion in the film is kind of contagious. Now, it's all science fiction. The use of electricity to bring back the dead by all versions of the story is completely implausible. But Branagh makes it seem more like science than fiction. The 1931 version of Frankenstein famously has our mad scientist Henry Frankenstein behind these controls, these levers, these electronic gizmos and gadgets, buzzing noises around him and little sort of sparks, a a slab that elevates all the way to the roof, and frankly, it's yeah, I mean, when I think mad scientist, this is the kind of imagery that I do think of, thanks to the original 1931 Frankenstein movie. Now, the recent Guillermo del Toro Frankenstein portrays a rather fantastic Gothic tower that is Victor Frankenstein's laboratory, and I mean it really is quite weirdly beautiful, but at the same time, sort of tragically cold. But like the 1931 version, his Frankenstein employs lightning from the heavens, but with what can only be described as, you know, mo- actually futuristic technology. I was about to say modern technology, but it's really futuristic because he's got this sort of rod and conductor mechanism that somehow moves on its own automatically. And also, as you see around the laboratory, he's got these. I don't really know what they are, but they're super cool, sort of green and red, lit gizmos that you see here, basically surrounding the body. It's all very cool looking, but I have to admit, it feels much more like fiction than science. The interesting thing also, instead of laying the lifeless creature on a slab, Del Toro actually positions the creature, at least in the creation process, or bringing him to life, features the creature in a Christ like crucifixion. I mean, look at it. Now, considering Del Toro's huge sympathy for the creature throughout the film and all the daddy issues he decided to put in the film, I don't think this religious imagery is an accident. Now, Kenneth Branagh has a different take on his laboratory and how he creates life. You see here, he begins with just this sort of loft in the city. I think it's Innsbruck in the movie, and it's a simple loft. It's not some tower. It's not some windmill. It's just a loft. It's dusty. There's a bird that's trapped in there that flies away when we first are introduced to this loft. But yeah, it's got this cool sort of triangular window in the background instead of that fancy round window that Guillermo del Toro eventually uses. And Branagh employs rudimentary systems of chains and pulleys where he lifts the body on this slab, and even the slab looks a little different. It's more of a sort of a metallic frame that he puts Robert De Niro's body on, and he maneuvers the body into this metallic tank. And above the tank, he's got this huge sort of sack hanging off the ceiling that apparently is filled with electric eels, and he releases those eels into the tank where the body is, which is mixed with amniotic fluid. In essence, Branagh's Victor Frankenstein is creating an artificial womb. In fact, he even has fire underneath the container, which you see in this picture here, to keep the body warm. And anyway, he's literally giving birth. Uh, well, maybe not literally, but basically in an artificial way, he's giving birth by using an artificial womb. Now, it's all very scientifically implausible, just like the other films. I mean, none of this would actually be able to happen in real life using any of these methods. Um, but there's something about these scenes, for me at least, the grittiness, along with the simple technology and of the rigging system, and plus Brandon's own physical performance in these scenes. I don't know, it just feels more believable to me. One of the major themes of the Shelley novel is the idea that Victor Frankenstein is playing God. And what's interesting to me is when you look at the 1931 version and the recent 2025 version, the Guillermo del Toro one, they when they employ lightning from the heavens to give this creature life, aren't they at least including God in the process when you think about it? I mean, if you believe that nature and that the elements, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, storms, if you believe they're acts of God, then surely when you employ lightning from the sky, that you're at least giving God a role. In Branagh's version, however, he basically takes God out of the equation. Thus, his Victor Frankenstein truly is playing God. Now, I got to talk about the creature. The 1931 Frankenstein version is a monster movie, and therefore the creature is, in fact, a monster. That's real simple. That's what Universal Studios wanted, or whoever made the film, the director, the writers. They wanted it to be a monster movie. So you have this huge creature, just grunts, flat head, got the bolts, meant to be kind of scary. Whatever small amount of sympathy that we have for the character dissolves very quickly because he becomes almost cartoonishly sort of murderous. For the more recent Guillermo del Toro version, Victor's the monster. And if you don't believe me, the film actually spells it out for you. And all of our sympathies are directed toward the creature. If you're going to be faithful to the novel, sympathy for the creature is actually tricky. He does end up, after all, killing some innocent people, including a child. I think Kenneth Branagh and Robert De Niro do a really nice job of walking that tightrope. Because we begin with great sympathy for the creature, but when he's had enough of man and their abuse toward him, he turns to bitterness and revenge. In fact, my favorite lines of dialogue in the film come from Mary Shelley herself, when the creature tells Victor, quote, "I have loved the likes of which you can scarcely imagine, and rage the likes of which you would not believe. If I cannot satisfy the one, I will indulge the other." And I think that's a perfect representation of this creature. And I really appreciate Robert De Niro's performance and the subtlety that he brings to the character, because frankly, if you know anything about Robert De Niro, he could have easily been over the top playing this creature. And obviously the creature is much more complex than the 1931 Boris Karloff version. I also don't agree with those who claim that Kenneth Branagh plays Victor too heroically. It is true that his Victor is not as, clinically depressed as the novel Victor Frankenstein seems to be, nor is he as crazy as Colin Clive is throughout the 1931 version. And obviously, he's not the villain that Oscar Isaac is in 2025. But his Victor Frankenstein, Branagh's Victor Frankenstein, has moments of passion, obsession, shame, and love, which are characteristics that we can all identify with. But Branagh also wanted to tell a love story in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which brings me to the third major character, Elizabeth. I can't think of another cinematic adaptation that features her character more prominently than in this film. We watch as she and Victor grow to fall in love, and if we can get past the awkwardness of their almost sibling like relationship growing up, It's quite a romantic story. And director Branagh really does indeed dial up the romance with ball dances and corsets and lovers pining away from afar. And Helena Bonham Carter, she just fits right in as Elizabeth. She's beautiful, patient, and determined. And for anyone longing to see a Bride of Frankenstein moment, look no further. Branagh gives us the definitive bride, in my opinion. The bride sequence in this film is strange, it's chaotic, and absolutely mesmerizing all at once. It's total madness, and I love it. In this age of cinema, it seems we have to endure overly long running times, screens filled with digital characters and settings that don't quite look or feel real, and plots that take major liberties with the source material. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, to me, is that perfect balance of entertainment while staying true to Shelley. It's well paced with dazzling cinematography, and it's poignant at times. Delivered with flair by director Kenneth Branagh. And it's fun. I think it's fun. I feel like critics in the 90s, and maybe even some critics today, kind of forgot how to have fun. So the next time that you have an opportunity to watch Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, just remember to sit back and enjoy the show.